Hello and welcome to the Data Engineering Podcast, the show about modern data management. What are the pieces of advice that you wish you had received early in your career of data engineering? If you were to hand a book to a new data engineer, what wisdom would you add to it? I'm working with O'Reilly Media on a project to collect the 97 things that every data engineer should know, and I need your help. Go to dataengineeringpodcast.com/97things to add your voice and share your hard-earned expertise. When you're ready to build your next pipeline or want to test out the projects you hear about on the show, you'll need somewhere to deploy it, so check out our friends over at Linode. With their managed Kubernetes platform, it's now even easier to deploy and scale your workflows or try out the latest Helm charts from tools like Pulsar and Pachyderm. With simple pricing, fast networking, object storage, and worldwide data centers, you've got everything you need to run a bulletproof data platform. Go to dataengineeringpodcast.com/Linode today and get a $60 credit to try out a Kubernetes cluster of your own. And don't forget to thank them for their continued support of this show. GoodData is revolutionizing the way in which companies provide analytics to their customers and partners. Start now with GoodData Free that makes our self-service analytics platform available to you at no cost. Register today at dataengineeringpodcast.com/GoodData. Your host is Tobias Macy, and today I'm interviewing Sheila Jung and Philip Farr about how GoodData is building a platform that lets you share your analytics outside the boundaries of your organization. So, Sheila, can you start by introducing yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Sheila Jung, and I started working for GoodData almost 5 years ago as a solutions architect in professional services. I am currently a senior manager in product enablement, leading a team of customer engineers and developer advocates. And our team's main focus is to empower the GD developer community and enable our internal sales team. Thanks for having us.
And Philip, how about yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Philip Farr. Having been with GoodData for a handful of years at this point, I've held several different positions which have touched on various aspects of the data engineering world. My current role is as a senior manager of technical program management and customer success, where I help oversee a team which partners with our customers to provide technical expertise in data product development and ensure a positive, mutually beneficial experience throughout our entire customer lifecycle journey. Thanks for having us today, Tobias.
And going back to you, Sheila, do you remember how you first got involved in the area of data management?
Yeah, definitely. I got involved in data management right after college when I joined a boutique consulting startup as a BI and ETL consultant. This is where I started getting familiar with various data management, warehousing, and visualization tools. That startup was eventually acquired by Teradata, and I've been in the data space ever since.
And Philip, how about you?
So from a professional first experience was probably when I joined a consulting firm which specialized in cybersecurity and privacy strategy right out of college. During that time, GDPR was becoming an increasingly hot topic in the security and privacy space. Many companies were searching for difficult to answer questions like, do we already have or can we create some type of data flow diagram to help us identify the right data relating to an individual? Or how do we ensure proper deletion once an individual requested that, once you've identified all of this information and where it was located? So my firm was really brought in to help solve these complex problems. And that's pretty much where I was exposed to data management.
And so in terms of the work that you're doing at GoodData, can you give a bit of a description about what it is that you're building there and as much of the origin story as you're each familiar with?
Sure. So GoodData's origin story starts with our CEO and founder, Ramon Stanek. Ramon was previously the founder for multiple companies like NetBeans and Systenet. And after his last company got acquired, he started GoodData in 2007. And his mission was to disrupt the BI space and monetize big data. At GoodData, what we're doing right now is we're building a way companies can provide analytics directly to their customers and partners. GoodData is seamlessly integrated into workflows and provides authenticated access to business reporting, dashboards, and ad hoc analysis, which is delivered at a timely, relevant, and customizable way for the independent users.
And The business intelligence space in general has been around for decades at this point, with a number of different iterations of it and different generations of how the tools are used and the types of data that they're dealing with and questions that are being asked and answered. And I'm wondering what the factors are that might lead somebody to choose GoodData over any of the other contenders in the space and some of the use cases that it's uniquely well suited to work for.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think we are from GoodData, so obviously we're slightly biased in this regard, but we really provide you with a platform to help boost the adoption of your application by embedding modern analytics. And the goal is to empower all of your end users via ad hoc exploration or templatized analytics and really remove what we would consider to be the costly customization of one-off reports, right? Say an internal organization spinning out one-time reporting to support whatever questions or answer whatever questions they're seeking. And so we've developed this cloud-hosted solution where changes roll out very quickly, and we really enable those end users to continually benefit from our platform improvements, right? And this can be done through, powerful analytics for any persona, self-service dashboards, interactive visualizations, what you could expect from a analytics tool. On another hand, we're really looking at flexible pricing options, which help enable companies to use GoodData, which vary in size, right? So we recently launched free and growth pricing tiers for easy entry and quick scaling into different departments or across various solutions for customers. And then, rounding out those offerings, we do have an enterprise offering or a long-standing offering, which supports thousands of users and terabytes of data. So we're really pushing the boundaries of scale there. From the flexible platform perspective, right? Like this is another one of the key differentiators, is the platform's built for flexibility for developers, and we provide kind of infinite options here. We have a React-based JavaScript library for creating analytical interfaces, which users and their creators absolutely love. In addition to this, there's very well documented APIs, which allow creators to interact with all platform capabilities via SDKs that we have developed. Furthermore, I think another area is really the robust and flexible data integration, where we have the ability to support any data source or technology stack. We integrate with things like Snowflake, Redshift, BigQuery, so all of the big cloud data warehousing names, as well as the ability to ingest data through hundreds of different connectors. And this is not limited to, say, small data volumes. It's any data volume, any type of connector. We can do custom connectors as well. And then, rounding it out is the enterprise level security and governance structure that we have put in place. We support things like agile change management, real-time user provisioning, solution monitoring, and we have a variety of compliance and certifications in place. SOC 2, HIPAA, GDPR, these are all things that we're able to help you solve as a customer.
Regarding the use cases that you're mentioning, Tobias, I would say that there are a wide range of use cases in industries, anything ranging from financial services to retail management. We don't actually have a single industry that we focus on supporting.
In going off of what Sheila said, I think our primary focus has really been to develop an analytics solution, which we call powered by GoodData, and that's kind of our term for it. And the best way to explain powered by GoodData is it really is an industry agnostic use case, or a business model, if you will, where we partner with a customer, and then that customer is looking to distribute analytics to all of their customers and provide it to tons of end users. And so a typical GoodData use case would be to distribute analytics, that same version of analytics at scale in the context of the end user's data, for as few as, say, 5 customers, but as many as 25,000. And as Sheila mentioned, right, this could be done pretty much, as you can imagine, for any industry.
And that's one of the interesting pieces of the product that you're building, where a large component of the business intelligence market is focused on these internal analytics use cases where you connect it up to your different data sources, usually some sort of data warehouse, and you have scheduled reports and dashboards that internal business users can look at to get a temperature check and get some sort of sense of how things are going in their business, maybe things like inventory or sales figures. Whereas with GoodData, what you're saying is that it's primarily focused on external analytics, where maybe a SaaS platform is providing some view to their customers in terms of the usage that they're getting out of the platform, or maybe sales figures that they're tracking in something like HubSpot. And so I think that that is one of the unique things about GoodData, where it is much more externally facing, and by virtue of that means that you have to take much more of a platform approach versus a point solution that you might get with something like Pentaho or a Redash or a Superset or something like that. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on just the overall market of business intelligence tools and how that's evolved in recent years, and some of the contributing trends in the technology and business use cases that have brought us to where we are today, and where you're going with GoodData.
Yeah, Tobias, that is a really great thought. So I would say that business intelligence tools evolved in recent years to help businesses make informed decisions. So the change is that analytics has been used for decades to help businesses make informed decisions both strategically and operationally by deriving insights from the data that they've collected. In more recent years, that has now shifted towards analytics everywhere. So rather than confining data analytics to a single use case or location, like you were mentioning, we are seeing an increased demand and value add for distributed analytics for your business partners, employees, customers, pretty much everybody. And the goal is to enable all the people at various levels in businesses to make these data-driven decisions with confidence.
And then from the trend perspective, Tobias, I think there are a couple worth noting that we do see customers actively pursuing and building upon. So the first one that I'd like to call out is really the democratization of technology, right? Right. And this is really where customers or users are having increased accessibility to technology. And this is pretty much pervasive throughout every industry, right? And for us, it's really the change towards analytics everywhere. And it's attributed to the increased accessibility of technology and modern day's reliance on this type of accessibility. So this spans all aspect of a business, from, say, the employees to clients or customers to stakeholders or executives, right? Who all need to be able to access and make decisions in real time, right? Make those data-driven decisions that are important. And so we're seeing this in a variety of industries. One example would be, say, the sharing economy, right? Now, as opposed to maybe a historical approach where decisions are made just based on a couple or a handful of internal stakeholders, right? Now you're needing to put data in the hands of many, many users, right? The people who are actually sharing or participating in the sharing economy, the providers or the renters, and how do they get the access to the data that they need to make these decisions in real time? And that has a really high influence over your business. And also, like, when you provide that type of analytics to those people or those individuals, it helps enable companies to overcome their competitors, right? You're giving power back to that user. In a similar vein, but a different a trend, right? IoT, the Internet of Things, is an area where we see many customers playing. Businesses where they may not have realized historically what data they had access to, or how powerful that data is to provide it back to their end users, or how to effectively share that with people across different levels of data literacy. And so we're talking about more archaic industries like auto parts or transportation, which can be slower moving and more publicly, or governmentally regulated. And so it's really giving these large industries access to analytics, which they probably never had thought about They never maybe requested it, or they may not have ever thought that this would ever come to their industry. But we're helping enable those types of companies to modernize and provide insights to their customers.
And the other piece that's interesting is the fact that, as you mentioned, you're developer oriented, where you're focusing on exposing a set of rich APIs for being able to build analyses and visualizations on the underlying data, where a lot of the existing suite of business intelligence tools are built as a vertically integrated solution, where the dashboarding is just a native capability, but also likely somewhat constraining in terms of the types of representations that you can build. And I'm wondering what you have seen in terms of some of the interesting and unique ways that that capability is being leveraged by your customers.
So thanks, Tobias, for mentioning the APIs. That's definitely something that our end users are leveraging, especially from the developer aspect of people that are integrating the Good Data platform into their own analytics. And that's something that we leverage through embedded analytics. And the ways we're able to embed the Good Data platform into the client's products or their own application is in three different ways. The very first way is just through like direct embedding via iframe, where you're getting the Good Data reports directly into the client's app or platform, and that is then utilizing the Good Data APIs. Another way is just to embed the link that is directly linked to the white label Good Data portal. And then the third way is the Good Data UI or GD.UI, which is the React-based development library, allowing developers to seamlessly integrate into Good Data with their product. So combined with something that we developed called the Accelerator Toolkit, this pretty much streamlines the front-end development efforts so that there's a lot of custom visualizations and integration into the customer's app.
And going off of that, I think where this really plays a role in is the customer development lifecycle, right? This is where we see the most heavy reliance on APIs or open APIs and SDKs, which really allow for that seamless integration in, say, a CI/CD type of system. The platform really provides, say, advanced support for release and rollout procedures, which a customer can leverage to cascade across different environments and manage all of those life cycles independently. So we're talking about, say, a development environment, or a QA environment, or a production or a series of different production environments based on segmentation. The platform also provides support for, say, on-demand provisioning, right? That can be driven and integrated with SSO. For example, say, on-demand provisioning via a SAML2 assertion. And so, one of the good use cases, I think, Tobias, you had mentioned a use case, is we do have a customer who is using Good Data to provide analytics on project management software. And this is a highly technical customer, and they are virtually completely self-service at this point, even though there is a lot of technical complexity to the Good Data platform. They control all aspects of their application in which they embed Good Data at different levels of granularity and expose the analytics to their end users. They have very detailed customer customization that supports their preferred user experience through, say, our APIs and SDKs. And they manage all aspects of Good Data, including things like data loading, user management, including role assignment, provisioning, deprovisioning, front-end development for 2,000 plus of their own customers.
And because of the fact that you are serving up these analytics capabilities to developers and end users who are integrating it into their own product, whereas a lot of the business intelligence market was oriented towards the business analysts and data scientists as their end users. I'm wondering what you have found to be some of the useful guidelines or guardrails for helping your customers to build useful and accurate and easily interpretable analytics for their end users.
So in regards to the semantic layer here, and the semantic layer here is really the logical data model that we can speak about. This is a layer that ensures that everyone understands the data in the same way, including self-service users. So this semantic model can be leveraged for guided analytics and provides a shared understanding for those analyzed entities and their relationships. This means that objects that were created by analysts once can be used by other common users and helps them to interpret the data and perform ad hoc data discovery. And this is possible through our analytical designer. So, as you were mentioning, when we're migrating from the concept of individual contributors or like individual reporters looking at data analysis, this semantic layer allows multiple people to take a look at the same data and understand it in the same way.
And I think thematically, Tobias, like one of the things that you're referring to, and kind of it's one of the things that we find to be most valuable about good data is this concept of migrating away from just these internally used business intelligence tools to these externally used, say, embedded analytical products, right? And when we look at these as a whole, both have similar types of requirements for things like data security and compliance and the great user experience for productivity, say the ease of development. Maybe it's the different ways to integrate the data or the ability to build semantics around that data. Right. But when we consider the realm of embedded analytics, right, or something that we call analytics everywhere at GoodData, we're really looking to embed directly into that software or that application and specifically in the context of that use case for that end user, right? Unlike the internal analytics space, the embedded analytics really requires very strong lifecycle management capabilities. And we're referring to, provisioning, versioning, how do you perform releases? How do you roll that out to many of your customers or end users, right? If you have, say, 3 customers, you may be able to build a solution from scratch every single time and maintain those changes in silos. But if you start considering, say, hundreds or thousands, or maybe even tens of thousands of customers and up to million users, right? How do you manage that? You really need a completely different architecture and power to operate or handle that change management and develop a solution for, say, different customer segments or different ways that you're choosing to monetize that data product or different access to different data sets, right? And so the difference is really that the internal analytics is centered around, personal aid and productivity. Where these SaaS embedded analytics provide an aid in collective productivity across users and across multiple organizations. The one other piece I'd like to add for that is there's an additional added complexity when you're considering many users, right? And that's really, how do you provision and deprovision all of these users, but also retain, say, the complete control over different levels of access. And that could be access at the as granular as, say, the data row level, right? Or it could be access to, which dashboards or which reports that they're getting, or the ability to create their own dashboard. So these are all complexities, I think, that we are solving for in this world of embedded analytics.
And digging deeper into the GoodData platform itself, can you talk about how it's architected and some of the evolution that it's gone through as you have continued to build out new capabilities and stay up to date with the changing landscape of data infrastructure and data usage?
Yeah, I'll start with the with the architecture piece, right? We've developed what we consider to be a very modular set of components, which our customers can kind of slice and dice and append to one another to create this end-to-end distributed analytical solution. And so I'll kind of walk you through maybe data source level to, say, dashboard level. At the lowest level, when we're talking about this end-to-end pipeline, we're really speaking to data ingestion, right? We have 150 plus connectors that are available for regular download of data from all sorts of source systems. we also do direct connections to those cloud data warehouses like Snowflake and Redshift and BigQuery. We could build out custom connectors in certain instances that sit on top of our customers' open APIs as well. So we've done all of this in the past. From there, we run through our ETL processes and load data into what we call ADS as the acronym, which stands for Agile Data Warehousing Service. And this is our internal data warehouse for staging and transforming the data. It has, all sorts of different, tables and views to support the transformations. And then ultimately, once we're ready to load this to different, say, tenants, right, or workspaces in GoodData terminology, we use a mechanism called automatic data distribution, or ADD. That distributes data to workspaces themselves. And what happens is, we can do this from ADS. We can also do this directly from cloud data warehouses if the schemas match whatever's in the logical data model in the workspace. And so we do have a lot of flexibility there to load data into workspaces. And to define workspaces for the audience, a workspace really is this end storage, which is a data mart that is loaded with a specific subset of a customer's data, so that when their customer wants to view analytics in the context of their data, it's just that particular subset of data that's been loaded. The workspace, within that workspace, we have the logical data model, or the semantic model, which Sheila had referred to earlier. And on top of that semantic model, we're able to easily build out dashboards, reports, metrics, all in the context of the business, as well as enable a key functionality of the platform, which is Analytical Designer, which we use as an ad hoc data discovery tool, where you can easily drag and drop, slice and dice your data so that you can come to your conclusions and insights more quickly. We spoke about SDKs, right? We have SDKs that interface with our open APIs. And then we also provide the tools for embedding, say, via iframe, more granular embedding via our GoodData.ui, which leverages the React and Angular framework. And throughout all of this, right, we have the lifecycle management tooling to control provisioning, releases, rollouts, user provisioning as well. And I think the guiding principle for all of this architecture really is governance and security, right? It provides a driving force behind the reason why our platform is architected the way it is. We support complete end-to-end SLAs. We have top security for those certifications like GDPR or HIPAA compliance, and we really have GoodData as these platform components that we can fully manage our own infrastructure and provide that design, which enables high performance, largely scalable, and ultimately distribution of these analytical workspaces.
And with the modularity of your architecture, I imagine that also simplifies the use case of letting your customers have different integration points into your platform for determining where in the lifecycle of their data they want you to take over, because there might be some custom ETL logic that they want to do on their systems before they load it into their workspaces, or they might just have a data repository of a data lake or a data warehouse somewhere, and they just want you to do everything end to end. And I'm wondering what the options are for people who already have an existing data infrastructure and processing capabilities to lean on GoodData for just the pieces that they care about, and some of the examples of customers who are hooking in at those different stages of their life cycle.
Absolutely. So what you're referring to is what pieces of the GoodData architecture would the client want to leverage? So we're talking about the data warehousing piece that Phil was talking about with ADS, where we could potentially get the aggregation of lots of different data sources on one place. Whether or not that's something that the client wants to leverage from the GoodData side or own on their side. There's also the loading mechanism, the ADD piece, where we're talking about how the client would be able to load that data, whether or not they want to keep it on their side or actually keep it on the GoodData side. So the ways we're able to manage that is really the flexibility of the types of sources we're able to download from, whether or not we are doing the transformations or just loading directly into the platform. So with all of the connectors that we have with these pre-packaged Ruby bricks that are leveraging the GoodData APIs as well as the source APIs, we're able to integrate their data and load it into ADS through those connectors. Or if the client wants to own a lot of the transformations themselves, match the exact metadata output for the semantic layer or the models that are on the workspaces, they're able to load that directly in with their data warehousing source through our automated data distribution or ADD, especially if they're using things like Snowflake, Redshift, or BigQuery.
And in the overall system architecture of what you've built at GoodData, how much of it have you been able to leverage off-the-shelf components for, whether it's things like Kafka or pre-built data warehouse systems, and how much of it has had to be custom engineered because of the complexities that you're working around and having to design around in order to ensure that the entire system remains performant for a multitude of customers in a multi-tenant situation?
Yep. So from an off-the-shelf component perspective, right, we're really talking about two primary areas. The first being front end, and the second being the back end. We are leveraging a pluggable UI framework on the front end. So this gives us the ability to use many publicly available UI components like React and Angular for the data presentation and visualizations. And what really is enabled here is that seamless integration, right? You can basically build the custom client application and give it that slick look and feel to match your client's vision or their customer's need, or hey, maybe they have a specific style guide that they have to follow for all of their internal applications that they have built. So it really has infinite possibilities relying on this particular framework. Similarly, our backend, it has a pluggable container-based architecture as well. And so that allows us to deploy these custom code bits like these modular bricks that we had referred to previously, which are essentially productized Ruby scripts that interact directly with our open APIs. And the idea is that we can deploy custom code that's written to our transformation processes and give kind of this more flexible architecture for ETL management and data pipeline management. And these bricks can be orchestrated into data transformation workflows for things like data ingestion or loading data into ADS or performing SQL transformations within the context of our internal data warehousing.
And then for somebody who's building their data product on top of GoodData, what is the overall workflow for being able to go from concept to completion?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? So, how do you build a data product? And the way that we approach it at GoodData is we really strive to build the data products which focus on a specific end user persona, right? Because we believe that this is what really highlights the value of having analytics or embedded analytics in the context of an application or a site or whatever that may be. Once we understand the mindset of those end users, we are then able to build the dashboards, reports, metrics, KPIs, right? All of these analytics, which enable those individuals to make those data-driven decisions in the context of their roles. It's about understanding the problem and then getting to the answer. And that's definitely achievable through the GoodData platform. The areas that this can be broken down into when we talk about actually implementing an embedded analytical solution really is in 5 main areas. And the first is getting that data. We need to extract and consolidate from, say, your application or your data warehouse or flat files that you're pulling from disparate areas of your business. Maybe it's a connection to a third party that we need to augment, your internal data warehouse with some other tooling that you're using outside of your infrastructure. And then we use this to create the data model. On top of that, the next thing that we'll do is build out the analytics. This is where we create those dashboards, reports, the metrics, right, that are relevant to the questions that are looking to be answered. And this is something that we think every single one of the customers should be looking to answer, right? Like this is the standard. Once we have that standard, we go through our release and rollout processes. And this is where we often refer to something as a template or a master, right? This is the standard reporting that everyone will get out of the box. And we take these lifecycle management tools and we help, perform this rollout on either a standalone or maybe a set of embedded reports or dashboards, and we disseminate that to the entire customer base. And once the customers have access to it, right, and they have access to their data, they can go in and finally customize and build their own set of custom reporting. Maybe they are looking at a different aspect of the business, or maybe they're looking at a reorganization that they need to solve for. And so we're really allowing the flexibility on the end user to formulate the insights that they need. I think the final piece of an implementation is, how do we operationalize everything, right? Once it's in place, we need to manage and drive the entire end-to-end life cycle for all of those customers, right? And we do this through, things like provisioning and deprovisioning new customers and new users. Or maybe it's in terms of managing growth and scalability or monitoring actual usage on the platform. So I think these are all of the key steps that we walk through in building, say, a brand new data product.
And then the other component of building the data product and the perspective of the customers in terms of working with their data is, I'm curious how the overall life cycle of the data flows through the GoodData product, from when the customer first collects the data through to delivering it to their end users and ensuring that the overall experience is as performant and robust as possible.
So the design that we have to work around to ensure performant access to the customer's data sources in the case of creating a data product, I think comes from two sides. First is from the customer's data side, understanding the customer's data instance. In the case that we're actually pulling things from the data warehouse, or they're sending us files to be ingested into ADS, those are the kinds of things that we want to take a look at. What is the actual health of their production instance? Can we have access to separate schemas and views to make sure that we aren't negatively impacting their production environment? What is the size of the data that we're putting in that we need to architect around? Do we need to provide some sort of incremental ingestion logic with deletions and all that kind of stuff so that we can handle large volumes of data in an efficient manner? Another thing to consider is when we're looking at a client's data from ingestion to something that will match our logical data model, they're going to be very different. So from an analytical tool set, you don't necessarily need things at the most granular or transaction level. So when we're looking at things like that, how are we going to maintain some sort of data retention policy that matches the client's data, what they're giving us, versus what's actually going to be on the platform? So those are the things that we might need to think through and architect around. Another thing is, as I was mentioning before, about an aggregation of different data sources within our ADS layer. This is the kind of stuff that we like to showcase, where we centralize our data pipeline across multiple data sources. So this is something that the customer can leverage as well if they want to look at a various amounts of data sources. So let's look at like a sales example. They might have their own transactions separately within their MySQL database, but then they also want to pull in their Salesforce data. We can aggregate all that information if it's not available for them in their own data warehouse. And the last piece about just the data side is really looking at that custom connector piece. How are we actually getting that data over from their side over to us. And historically, we've had experiences in the past where we were able to build up these custom bricks or connectors so that our clients would be able to have their data migrated from their side over to GoodData. On the other side of this, in terms of the data migration, I would also say there is a performant level that we like to acknowledge from the platform perspective. So when we're looking at large amounts of data, or if we're looking at near real-time analytics, there are things on the platform that we want to consider as well, like pre-caching. Maybe there's a very important meeting that a lot of people like the GoodData analytics for. We want to ensure that everything is cached before these kinds of important meetings or stuff like that. So we have scripts that make that possible. Another ability that we're able to give to our clients is the option for different hardware to handle high concurrency or high data volumes. And there are also a lot of different ways that we've enhanced the logical data model to make sure that it is very reasonable to have performant access for our clients. And one way that we were able to do that is through many-to-many relationships. Rather than duplicating data and increasing data volumes on that data mart on the client workspace, we can leverage the many-to-many functionality on our data models to help clients with that kind of access.
And in your experience of building the platform and working on it yourselves and working with your customers to ensure that they're having successful outcomes, what are some of the most interesting or unexpected or challenging lessons that you've learned in the process?
I would say the most interesting part of working on client implementations of GoodData is the breadth of business use cases we're developing for our clients. So no one use case is the same. They're all very different because all these different businesses have different business models and different data models. So I would say this was especially rewarding because of the constant innovative data challenges that we had to overcome with the GoodData platform.
My take on this one is based on all the implementations I've seen. It never ceases to amaze me, but there's always a customer that's trying to push the boundaries of platform functionality, right? And this is always a tricky one, especially in a customer relationship standpoint. You want to help them meet their needs, right? Within all of the platform limitations. And of course, they want to do something new and creative, and you want to enable them to do that. But we need to find a healthy medium without compromising the end result or eventually setting that client or customer up for eventual failure due to a lack of sustainability. And so it's always very interesting and poses a unique challenge every single time it comes up, because you have to go back to the drawing board and be like, these are all of our confines. How do we build something new, right? Or maybe it is we reach out to product to help us extend some of the existing functionality, but oftentimes the solution needs to be more immediate.
And one of the interesting pieces of the overall GoodData platform as well is the fact that you have introduced a different interface for being able to define the logical models using the MAQL or multidimensional analytical query language dialect. And I'm wondering if you can give a bit of a compare and contrast between that and SQL and some of the benefits and additional functionality that MAQL provides.
Yeah, so MAQL stands for Multidimensional Analytical Query Language. And this is GoodData's proprietary query language for creating metrics or aggregations of the underlying data that is defined in that semantic layer. This differs from SQL in that it's a streamlined analytical language with less code to write and maintain. So less technical folks find MAQL easier to use. And we found that anyone familiar with SQL is able to pick up MAQL very quickly. The key advantages that I would state about MAQL is one, working with the GoodData platform, it works out of the box. It's something that is innate in our platform. It's also multidimensional. So this pairs very well with our semantic layer. And going back to what I was saying about less code, what happens is there are no joins or subjoins in MAQL queries that are are stated to define a metric because it works on top of the logical data model. So these queries are already context aware. And talking about the context aware piece with everything being semantically related through the logical data model, any metric can also be immediately used for reporting and can be reused again. So this is something that can be utilized for all of our clients, doesn't need to be rewritten. It can be pre-composed and then used by thousands or tens of thousands of users across their reports. There's also the composability of these metrics. So you could put in nested metrics, build foundation metrics. That way, when you drag and drop this into your analytical designer interface, you could apply different filters and all that kind of stuff. So there is that capability as well. And I would say the last piece about a key advantage of MAQL is the resiliency. So a lot of the times when there is some like source to target mapping of that will require some sort of significant refactoring of the actual data model, this sits exactly on the semantic layer. So there really doesn't have a serious impact on the existing metrics or reports, unless of course there was something that like a serious LTM change was made on the front end that needed to be released and rolled out. But I would say in general, the benefit of MAQL is less code. It's context aware because of the semantic layer. Composing metrics and reuse is very easy, and the resiliency.
And in terms of good data, what are the cases where it's the wrong choice and someone might be better suited using a vertically integrated internal platform or building out their own analytics solution for exposing to end users?
Yeah, so if you're seeking a single static data visualization for your management team or maybe a public chart for your website, good data will be too complex of a platform for you. In this case, using data visualization tools or libraries would be better suited. However, if you plan to do anything more than just a simple static data visualization, you would need to find something that's more reliable, that does have this lifecycle management, pretty much what good data has.
And what do you have on the roadmap for the future of good data in terms of new capabilities or just overall improvements or new use cases that you're looking to provide?
Good data continues on the trend of analytics everywhere for everyone. And this includes improvements on data integration options, bringing better data visualizations on the front end that is available through analytical dashboard, bringing better collaboration between data engineers and analysts, and improving the self-service analytics ease of use for these non-analysts.
And to add to that, I think another component of our roadmap that's really exciting for us is we're working on a newer Kubernetes-based deployment option of good data, right? And this really will help us enable co-locating the analytics with a SaaS application that may be deployed, say, in a public or private cloud platform or in a local on-prem data center. So the goal is to enable the same functionality that when we get out of the cloud-hosted Good Data platform, maybe for companies that need more enhanced control or stricter guidelines or just want to feel like they have the full ownership and it's less of a managed service that we are providing to them.
Are there any other aspects of the space of embedded analytics or the product that you're building at Good Data or anything else in the business intelligence and analytics space that we didn't discuss that you'd like to cover before we close out the show?
I think that we touched on a lot of the key aspects and the reasons why we think that Good Data has a competitive advantage. So I think we're from my perspective, we touched on a lot of things I hope the larger audience would find useful and that we kind of present like information from the Good Data perspective as well.
All right. Well, for anybody who wants to get in touch with either of you and follow along with the work that you're doing, I'll have you each add your preferred contact information to the show notes. And as a final question, I would just like to get your perspective on what you see as being the biggest gap in the tooling or technology that's available for data management today.
Yeah, I mean, that's always the big question, right? Is what's next? Where are we heading? I think I see that there could be improvements in terms of the data cleansing area of data management and data engineering, right? I know, personally, a lot of people, including myself, spend a lot of time debugging or cleaning up data sets or trying to ensure that the data is clean enough to run end-to-end through ETL. And part of that is error handling. Part of that is maybe removing records, right, which could lead in some type of inconsistency, right? So, the area I would like to see development on would be some, very customizable data cleansing solution that has a very flexible integration with other analytical tools, a drag and drop, similar to how we mentioned earlier, a pluggable UI framework, right? Is there a way that someone could build a solution that would integrate directly into our native technologies, and we could customize that and deliver that as a packaged option to our customers as well, and really limit the amount of time that it takes to process and handle all of the data and troubleshooting, and limit the troubleshooting, and hopefully free up time for more value add activities.
To add to that, I would say not necessarily a big gap, but a big change that we would probably see in the future is as more users are getting access to tools where they have access to data, maybe they didn't have access before, as Phil was mentioning in a use case earlier. We're going to need improvements to make semantics and relationships in general in data a little bit easier to understand. So even though we do have like a semantic layer and other tools may have something similar to make it easier for their end users to actually utilize, I predict in the future that we would need to simplify this even further for a wider audience.
All right. Well, thank you very much for both taking the time today to join me and discuss the work that you're doing with GoodData and empowering embedded analytics for end users and making the overall analytics space more accessible. It's definitely a very interesting product, and I had a lot of fun learning about it as I got prepared as I prepared for the show. So thank you both for all of the time and energy you put into that, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Yep. Thank you, Tobias. Thanks for having us today. Yeah. Feel free to share our contact information. We're happy to communicate offline with anyone who has any open questions or concerns or follow-ups that are needed. But we appreciate your time as well. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Tobias. Thanks for having us. Bye.
Listening. Don't forget to check out our other show, podcast.init, at pythonpodcast.com to learn about the Python language, its community, and the innovative ways it is being used. And visit the site at dataengineeringpodcast.com to subscribe to the show, sign up for the mailing list, and read the show notes. If you've learned something or tried out a project from the show, then tell us about it. Email hosts at dataengineeringpodcast.com with your story. And to help other people find the show, please leave a review on iTunes and tell your friends and coworkers.